everyone. Today I am going to be doing a scored review for Mega Man 2 from the Mega Man Legacy Collection. Now, in the Mega Man Legacy Collection reviews, I will be doing each game individually and also the challenges by themselves. So there will be 7 reviews for everything in this game, not just one for the whole game. Now, in this game, this is the sequel to the first game, which I've actually recently done. It was published by Digital Extremes, the Mega Man Legacy, or Digital Eclipse, and I am getting this all kinds of wrong. It was developed by Digital Eclipse and published by Capcom. But the actual game, Mega Man 2 itself, was originally published and developed by Capcom. Just this iteration was Digital Eclipse. Now, I score a game in 5 different categories, which would be story, graphics, music sound effects, gameplay and controls, and achievements. Now, for the story, unlike the first one, there is a little bit of story. It kind of is in the vein of things start up immediately after the first one ends kind of story. So you're back after Wily again and you have to take down his evil robot army and then defeat him again. It's a very simple storyline, so there's not really much to that. The graphics, now, this particular game didn't really do a whole lot with the graphics in terms of like the enemies and Mega Man and the bosses. It it does look a little better in everything, but basically Mega Man, he pretty much looks the same through all 6 games. Where the big difference was in the graphics was the environments and the backgrounds. They're a whole lot more detailed, more vibrant and colorful. And if I remember correctly, this is the first one that has like moving objects as part of the background decor. So it brings several of the stages to life when you're playing through it. Now, for the music and sound effects, of course, the music in this game, to me, I thought was probably one of the most superior soundtracks in the original 6 games. And to me, this is probably the most memorable set of music. I can still recall a lot of these to this day, even before I played this Legacy Collection. The sound effects are still the same iconic Mega Man sound effects, complete with the jumping sound effect, the shooting, like the menus and stuff like that. So the music and sound effects are very well done for this game, especially considering the time it came out and the touched up version's pretty clean. Now for the gameplay and mechanics. Now the gameplay is very simple. It's an action platformer. It's running, it's jumping, it's shooting. It's more on the action side rather than the platformer, but you do just about equal amounts of both. The gameplay was definitely a step up from the first one. They left it in a state where it's more player friendly. The first one is very punishing with the amount of skill you need to be able to get through some of the stages, especially if you don't have some of the power-ups that make the stages easier. And also, a big thing in this game that wasn't in the first game was the balancing of the weapons. Almost every weapon here is useful for something. The 2 that are most situational are the Flash Stopper and the Crash Bomber. Those are pretty much just used for situational stuff. But like Heatman's ability, it's useful for several bosses. Airman's ability, useful for several bosses, also for hitting enemies that are above you, which, I mean, you have better weapons for that. The Wood Shield, useful for certain bosses and most small enemies. Bubble Lead is a utility item. It's useful for ground enemies or spotting in the one stage that they show up. Fake Floors. Quick Boomerang, it's a high speed attack that you can have up to, I think, 7 on the screen at any given time, unlike the standard Buster here. In this one, they got Flash Stopper, which is useful in Quickman stage, but it's also used on Quickman, so it's up to you whether or not you want to try to run his gauntlet of death, or if you want to just stop it and run through the stage itself. Now, the Metal Blade, the most OP weapon in this game. It is useful for just about everything. Heck, it kills like 4 of the bosses very easily, so yeah, more power to you. And you can use, I think it's 3 before you use up a chip of energy from it, so it's a good utility weapon for running through stages as well. The Crash Bomber, like I said, it's situational. It's used for blowing up certain marked walls, which, I mean, they're clear when you see them, but it's also required for one of the bosses. So if you don't have full Crash Bomber when you fight that boss, you can't win. It doesn't matter how hard you try. And then you have option 1, 2, and 3. 1 is a floating platform that you can use to jump on. 2 is uh, a jet skate that you can hop on and it carries you left to right. 3 is a wall climbing device. So it's 3 very useful but very different utility weapons. And then the one big thing that they added into this game, which makes a huge difference, was the introduction to the E-tanks. Now, these are just full heals that sit in your inventory and you can have up to 4. That is a big game changer, and this is the first game that they show up in, and they carry on every game forward. Also, this is the first game that introduces the 8 Robot Masters, which becomes a staple throughout the game. This, in turn, lengthens the game and allows you to have a longer, more enjoyable experience. Also, this is the first iteration of Wily's Castle where you actually see a map that you go on, unlike the first one where it was just you instantly move to the next stage. And they also added 2 additional stages to Wily's Castle, so all in all, compared to the first game, you do have 4 more stages you can play through. And this is also the first game that introduces the boss room, or boss rush stage. In the first one, you came across the rebattle of the bosses sporadically in the Wily stages. There's 2 in one stage and then 4 in the remain in the last stage. And the boss room in this one is all 8 in a single room. It's a gauntlet, and then you fight the stage boss for that run. So this game adds a lot of new ideas that continue on through later Mega Man games. So outside of that, now that I've rambled on a lot about the mechanics that they added, this one, the achievements for this game, just like the first one, only includes 2. There's one for beating Mega Man 2, and then there's one for beating all 6 games. So really, you're only just getting the one game achievement. So the achievement for this one is pretty easy. This Mega Man also introduces a difficulty thing, which was, I believe, only in the American version. The Japanese one, I think, is just straight out the gate the quote challenge difficulty that's listed at the beginning of the game. So it's up to you if you want to play challenge difficulty or normal. I did normal for this run through because I'm going to have to go back through and do the Rockman games because there's some differences between the games, and that one will be the Japanese difficulty, so I'll cover that in Rockman too. So, on average, I rate a video game or DLC, 5 out of 10 is average instead of the industry standard of 7 or 8. And this particular game, like, not only did I breeze through the game fast, but I still enjoyed it even all these years later. It's got um, enhanced graphics compared to the first. It's got actually it's got a story, but I mean I can't really count that too much. Um, the music and sound effects are top notch for the game. The gameplay and controls. The gameplay is actually pretty smooth in this game, and the or not the gameplay, the controls are pretty smooth in this game, and the gameplay adds a whole lot of new mechanics that really favor enjoyment and additional things you can do, and more than one way to approach every stage and boss. And then the one achievement isn't that hard, it's just beating the game. So, looking back at this game that I super enjoyed back when I was a kid and replaying it now for this review and the walkthrough I did, I don't normally score games high, so I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. If you love Mega Man, you will love this particular Mega Man game, hands down. 2 is probably one of the best ones in the franchise. So, 8 out of 10, and with all things gaming, game logic, am I right? See you next time.